welcome to HITC Sport. Alright, let's take a look at every current Premier League manager and try to find the worst player they've ever picked for a football game throughout their entire managerial career. Good lord, this list is the lowest of the low. Mikel Arteta, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Okay, let's be honest, Mikel Arteta has picked less than 20 players in his entire managerial career. Not surprising considering it's only been going on about 3 weeks. I don't know, how about Ainsley Maitland-Niles? A bang average makeshift right back, and it's probably the main reason why football clubs haven't introduced Bring Your Mum to Work Day. Dean Smith, John Mackin. Remember John Mackin, the former Man City striker, back when they were poor, who was forced to sit on the bench in a must-win game and watch as Stuart Pearce decided to chuck the goalie up front rather than him, rather than the paid centre forward. That must have been like a shotgun to the ego, and he never really recovered. By the time Dean Smith got his hands on him at Walsall, back during the 11-12 season, the lad was a washed-up shell of the man who once lit up Preston during the late 90s. His next 3 clubs after Walsall were Northwich, Victoria, Stockport County, and something called Bamber Bridge. So I think that tells you all you need to know about where that man was in his career. Eddie Howe, Anthony Edgar. Right, let's go rifling through the gallons of pig feces that Eddie Howe was forced to pick during his many years slumming it in the dregs of League 2 with Bournemouth. Let's just say Anthony Edgar, a midfielder who played 3 games in League 2 whilst on loan from West Ham back in 2009 before going on to carve out a career hopping between League 2 and the lower echelons of the conference. This is a midfielder who since the age of 23 has lined out for Bishop Stortford, Braintree Town, Woking, Hayes and Yedding United, and now at the age of 28 the lad is rotting in the Isthmian League with Cray Valley Paper Mills, which doesn't sound like a football club, it just sounds like some sub-branch paper merchants. Graham Potter, Wilfred Boney. Okay, don't get me wrong, Wilfred Boney was a top player on his day, but that day was a good half-decade ago. What Graham Potter was forced to wheel out last season was an unfit tub of meat sweats, who clearly left any shred of work ethic or motivation for his career stained on the coffee table on which he signed his Man City mega contract. What Potter gave 7 championship appearances to last season, while at Swansea City was a 30-year-old shadow of what once inhabited his body. I mean, come on, it's a year later and Boney is currently stuck at home waiting for the phone to ring after spending the summer months training with Newport County. I mean, I say training, the poor fella probably only rocked up to nick pies from the canteen. Sean Dyche, Chris Owellamo. For Sean Dyche, I'm gonna go back to his year-long spell at Watford back in 2011, where Christ above he was greeted with some god-awful footballers. I'm tempted to choose Nyron Nosworthy, a defender who during his prime years once formed part of a backline which amassed 11 points during an entire season. But no, I'm sorry, you can't look past Chris Owellamo. You know, the lad who missed an open goal from 3 yards out on his Scotland debut. I'm not sure how he ever carved out a career in this sport. As an alleged centre forward, he couldn't even point out a goalpost on a goddamn map. At Watford, he scored 3 goals in 39 games under Dyche. This man was a well-paid striker and he was getting outscored by goddamn fullbacks. Frank Lampard, David Nugent. Well, it has to be a Derby County player, doesn't it? I mean, Frank Lampard clearly showed that he has a brain stuffed in his head by refusing to pick Kennedy upon arrival at Chelsea. But then again, I shouldn't give him too much credit. That's a bit like refusing to stick your hand in a toaster. It's just common sense. He also stayed his hand when deciding whether or not to give F.A. Ambrose a game last season, which would have been like chucking a live grenade into his defence. I'll go for big David Nugent. 10 years ago, the lad was bang average. In his pomp, he was stuffed onto the Portsmouth bench and somehow tricking England managers into giving him international caps. Then again, don't get too excited, it was Steve McLaren, the same man who once paid legal tender for Henry Slivett. Under Lampard, Nugent was 30 years of age, clearly passed his best, whatever that was, and scored just twice in 38 appearances, before being flushed out the door at Preston North End at the end of the season. Roy Hodgson, Ciftci Ciftci. Roy Hodgson had the pleasure of picking Ciftci Ciftci for not 1 team during his managerial career, but 2, for both Fulham and the Finland national team. He wasn't good for either. Ciftci is your classic journeyman centre forward. You know, the lad passed around like a goddamn hacky sack, making 17 transfers in his entire career. He played nearly 60 Premier League games and scored a grand total of 8 goddamn goals. He never scored any for Fulham and had a pretty miserable goal scoring record for his country as well. Ciftci Ciftci was terrible. Carlo Ancelotti, Philippe Senderos. When you look at the world-class superstars Carlo Ancelotti has worked with during his career, you have to take a sort of a double take and remember that, oh yeah, he once stuck Philippe Senderos in his defence. Now I don't know whether someone laced his morning Weetabix with traces of crystal meth, I don't know. Something was clearly affecting his logic by giving Senderos nearly 20 games in the AC Milan backline. Imagine going from Paolo Maldini and Alessandro Nesta to Senderos and the Gooch. Senderos is a guy perceived by many to be one of Arsenal's worst ever defenders. He also flopped at Fulham, Aston Villa and even Rangers. What business did he ever have being at the San Siro? Christ above. Brendan Rodgers, Nader Ciftci. Now he almost went with Luke Moore. That hideously awful striker played a few games for Brendan Rodgers at Swansea City. But no, I can't look past Nader Ciftci. Arguably the worst Celtic player of the last 10 years. And they have had some shockers. To be fair, the former Dundee United striker played just 4 times under Rodgers, never scored and was chucked out on a series of pointless loans, including Plymouth, Motherwell, and something of the back arts of Poland. Ask a Celtic fan about the talents of Nader Ciftci. I can almost guarantee you they would rather pour gasoline in their eyes rather than ever remember that Celtic Park stain. Jurgen Klopp, Stephen Cocker. Yeah, I could go rifling through Jurgen Klopp's 7 years at Mainz, looking to uncover some dirt he once picked. But where's the fun in that, alright? Look no further than the man's first signing at Liverpool. Stephen Cocker dragged in on loan off the Southampton bench. Look, I get that club have a permanent stiffness in their pants for anything that came out of Southampton. But Cocker? The lad who just 3 weeks earlier had formed part of a backline that conceded 6 against your team. A fella to whom the word relegation is just an annual formality. And what's more, you end up sticking him up front? What? It's 4 years later, Cocker's 28 and currently on the books of Aliyanaspor out the back arts of Turkey after flopping at Dundee. How do you flop at Dundee? PEP GUARDIOLA Gai Assulin. Look, Gai Assulin might be a hopeless excuse for a winger, but the man can always point to the fact that he was once coached by Pep Guardiola during his career. No, he never played a single minute of a league match, but he played 56 minutes of a Copa del Rey game for Barcelona against Cultural Leonesa in October 2009. The following year, he was then sold to Man City. He might as well have stayed at home, because he never made a single appearance. He even flopped on loan at Brighton. He since had anonymous days at Granada, Mallorca, Hapoel Tel Aviv, and now at the age of 28, the Israeli winger is currently on the bench of FC Panathinaikos, a Romanian club formed back in 2010. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Tommy Smith. I'm tempted to plump for League Grant, I really am. Or really any of the Man United squad which lost out at Kazakhstan last month. But I'm not going to make like my parish priest and just spend the afternoon abusing kids. Alright, that wouldn't be fair, okay? Instead, let's go for his relegation stint at Cardiff in 2014, when the veteran Tommy Smith played just 11 minutes under Solskjaer in a 2-1 FA Cup win at Newcastle. Other than that, he was deemed to be about as much use as a snotty Kleenex. Steve Bruce, Rowan Vine. I think Steve Bruce should be given the Medal of Honor. Honestly, because he's one of the few people on the planet to coach both the twin evils of Titus Bramble and Paul McShane. Honestly, he's managed to survive this with all his brain cells still intact. Most mortal men, after just a single training session with either defender, would have been driven to madness, shoving sharpened pencils up their nose in a vain attempt to understand the situation. Not only this, but Bruce actually turned Bramble into Wigan's Player of the Year, got McShane to an FA Cup final. For Christ's sake, Bruce could probably turn an empty bottle of shampoo into a 10 million rated defender. Bruce also coached the likes of Nicholas Bendner, Marlon King, and his own talentless son. Clearly someone whose wife just made him repeatedly take to work. But no, step forward, Rowan Vine. Words can't express how bad a signing this was for Birmingham City in the Championship some 12 years ago. So maybe his god-awful CV might illustrate this for us. Greenock Morton, Basingstoke Town, Hartley Whitney. I think we're all beginning to see the striker standard. Daniel Farke, Yannick Wilchut. Yeah, pretty simple for Daniel Farke. He had to face the indignity of chucking Yannick Wilchut onto a pitch a good 15 times for the Canaries. The former Wigan winger is slow, unencumbered, and severely lacking in end product. At the age of 28, in his prime, he's currently out the back arse of Israel with Maccabi Haifa. Oh dear. Chris Wilder, Joe Riley. Oh Christ, Chris Wilder has been a manager for nearly 20 years, taking up sticks with Alfreton Town back in 2001. The lad spent 6 years at Halifax, another 6 at Oxford United, 2 at Northampton Town, and you want me to find the worst player he's ever coached? I'm guessing the worst player out of that bunch is probably just some fat lad brought down the pub to make up the numbers at Alfreton. But of the players I know, I'm gonna go with Joe Riley. You know, the lad who once played a couple of games at Man United under Louis van Gaal. Make no mistake about it, this Sheffield United dish rag is absolutely a hopeless defender. No wonder he's stuck on the bench at Bradford. Ralph Hasenhüttl, Oliver Burke. Yeah, the first £15 million signing to make this list. Well lads, can we not all agree, right? Oliver Burke has not lived up to the hype he once had at Nottingham Forest. This is a man who Ralph Hasenhüttl signed for RB Leipzig in a £13 million deal back in August 2016. Didn't do much in Germany, flopped in a £15 million deal at West Brom, flattered to receive on loan at both Celtic and now at Lav. Am I being harsh to include him when my Yoshida exists in the world? Maybe. Let me know. Jose Mourinho, Lenny Pidgley. The thing is, Jose Mourinho has dealt in super clubs for the majority of his career. He only dines with the finest wine. But don't worry, he's also choked on some piss-stained turnips as well. I don't want to be mean, but I think he'll even admit it himself. Lenny Pidgley was not Premier League quality. The lad was a third-choice Chelsea goalie, wheeled out for a couple of games when the leagues were all sewn up, and when nothing really mattered. He then went to sit on the benches of Carlisle, Woking, Exeter City, Leatherhead, Forest Green Rovers, Farnborough. Should I go on? But hey, in amongst the interminable dross stuffed into his CV, he can always tell his grandkids about the 2 times he was picked by Jose. Nigel Pearson, Castleba. You all think I'm going to spend my afternoon rifling through League One teams from 10 years ago, trying to find useless defenders at Southampton, Leicester and Hull? Players so bad mere mentions of the name would cause you to chuck up your own dinner. Honestly, reminding you of Kerry Gilbert is a bit like reminding you of 2 Girls, 1 Cup. But no, I don't have to, right? I just have to look at Pearson's singular game as caretaker boss of Newcastle back in January 2008. A 6-0 defeat at Man United. Judging on that display, did I think Pearson would one day assemble a title-winning team? No, based on that game, the man didn't look capable of packing his own lunchbox, never mind picking a coherent football team. Brazilian centre-half Casper was terrible. A man who's gone down as one of Newcastle's worst ever centre-halves. David Moyes, Papi Gilabodji. Oh, there were loads of players I could have chosen for David Moyes. This man has been around. I mean, if you're nominated as the worst player in the entire of Moyes' career, you should arguably consider a change in profession. I'm going for Papi Gilabodji, a laughably woeful Sunderland defender who he coached to relegation in 2017. And that club was tricked into paying 8 million quid for that man. I have no earthly idea. The man would later be sacked by Sunderland for returning to pre-season over a month late and at least 2 stone overweight. He's currently stuck out in Turkey with Gaziantep, safely packaged as far away from English football as humanly possible. Don't worry, Sunderland fans. He can't hurt you now. NUNO, ESPIRITO, SANTO, Will Norris. NUNO Espirito Santo is used to getting his hands on the very best, the finest quality, so forcing him to chuck out Will Norris for a couple of games in the Wolverhampton Wanderers net, it must have felt a bit like kissing his cousin. Anyway, that's the end of the video, lads. Let me know in the comments, who do you think was the worst player your manager has ever picked in any league? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.